I'm going to read to you now Pocahontas, Chapter 2, beginning on page 25. Read along with me silently as I read. Don't read it out loud. Just read silently with me. If you don't know a word, just guess as I read. You'll have a chance to look it up later during your second reading. Captain Newport was returning with strict orders from the London Company, which was paying for the Jamestown project. Naturally, the men who had put their money into the London Company wanted to get rich as fast as possible. When they heard that Newport had brought back rocks that John Martin, the goldsmith's son, claimed were gold, they were delighted. But when the rocks were tested and turned out not to have one speck of gold in them, the London men said John Martin was a cheat. On his next trip, Captain Newport better bring back real gold, they said, and good news, too. By this time, the colony should be in good working order, and the Indians should have become obedient and friendly. But of course, as Captain Newport could see, all the settlers had done in his absence was to fight among themselves and die. There were only 38 survivors, all of them ravenous for the good English food he'd brought with them. Cheese, pork, beef, butter, and drink. Real drink, not dirty river water. Now they'd settle down and start over. They didn't know that they would have to start from scratch. 5 days after Newport's arrival, a fire broke out in Jamestown. From thatched roof to thatched roof, the flames leapt until all but 3 small buildings had burned down. Reverend Hunt wasn't able to save a single book from his precious library. The church was destroyed, and the storehouse, which contained much of the food that Captain Newport had brought with him. But they didn't go hungry. As soon as Powhatan heard what had happened, he began sending food to Jamestown. Every 4 or 5 days it was delivered, and along with the food and the food carriers came Pocahontas, a special ambassador from her father to John Smith and Captain Newport. Pocahontas had 2 worlds now, and she was doubly happy, traveling back and forth from her own familiar world, ruled by her father, to the strange new world of John Smith. She placed great importance on her kinship to John, more perhaps than her people commonly did, but then she was younger than sponsors generally were, and as anyone could see, John Smith was not a common kind of man. So it was not surprising that she felt a special belongingness. It was as if they were forever bound together as members of each other's worlds. Nor was it surprising that John humored her, although he himself did not take the kinship seriously. What harm was there in being the favorite of the king's favorite daughter? In John's world, Pocahontas worked off her high spirits by challenging 2 or 3 boys in the settlement to contests of leaping and running. In turn, the boys taught her how to turn cartwheels, which became a favorite sport of hers. In follow-the-leader fashion, she would lead the boys, and away they would go, hand over hand, feet flying. Much of the time, however, she spent with John Smith, watching him work, coaxing him to play, exchanging words, English for Indian, Indian for English. John, who used every opportunity to learn the language, had a book in which he wrote down Indian words, and perhaps as their speaking together improved, Pocahontas was able to explain that her name meant lively or frolicsome. Even to her adopted brother, however, she would not have confessed her real name, Mataoka, sometimes translated Little Snowfeather, because that was a secret between her and her clan. To speak one's real name aloud was like opening a door to evil spirits. And Pocahontas was far too pleased with her life right now to take any chance with evil spirits. Once, John Smith wrote down a long sentence that he could use when he wanted to send Pocahontas a message. I'm not going to read this sentence in Indian. It would just be crazy. I cannot pronounce any of it. So there's that long sentence. You don't need to read it either. Beside the Indian words, John wrote the English translation. Bid Pocahontas bring hither 2 little baskets, and I will give her white beads to make her a chain. He would not have bothered to learn such a long sentence unless he expected to use it more than once. And indeed, on every trip to Jamestown, Pocahontas added to her store of presents from John. On her return home, she would show off her treasures and perhaps share them with her half-sisters. She had many, for her father, as the chief, had many wives. Sometimes she taught her sisters and friends English phrases she had learned. Not always from John Smith, but from the boys she had played with as well. There was one phrase which always made the English boys laugh. Love you not me? Indeed, she was asked to say the phrase so often that when she went home she taught it to her friends. Love you not me? Love you not me? They would all laugh and repeat it over and over. Love you not me? The Indians had become so friendly now that Captain Newport marveled, and in turn he became friendly with them. Too friendly, John Smith said. Captain Newport couldn't see that in spite of the gifts, the friendship was shaky. The only way to handle the natives, as John had said again and again, was to be firm, to stay on guard, and keep the upper hand. But Captain Newport was not firm, and he didn't stay on guard. He let his sailors trade with the Indians on any terms they wanted. The Indians hardly had to bargain at all. Sure, the sailors said they could have a copper for a small amount of corn. It didn't matter to them. They would be going home soon. John Smith just wished they would go. The longer they stayed, the more food they ate, the more beer they drank, and the less there was for the settlers. The longer they stayed, the more corn would cost. At the end of February, Captain Newport insisted that John take him to meet Powhatan. To play safe, John took 30 or 40 armed men to act as bodyguards. At Werowocomoco, he and some of the men went ahead to make sure that everything was peaceful. All right, I'm going to stop here. This is Chapter 2, Part 1. We will begin Chapter 2, Part 2 shortly.